Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spirit on Demand. I'm Sharron Ragan, and I am your host for this podcast. And as I said, it is called Spirit on Demand. So, what does Spirit on Demand mean? Well, for me, it means that as an intuitive, I am continuously able to tap into what I call spiritual guides. And through those guides, I get a lot of information. And I get information that I can pass on to you and talk about anything. So, how in the world did I start this? I mean, why would I even start this podcast? So, let me tell you just a little bit about me and my story. So, right now, I actually own a metaphysical business. It's one of the larger metaphysical businesses in the southern US. And I have all kinds of spiritual tools. I have crystals, I have stones, jewelry, Tibetan bowls, incense, candles, you name it, we've got it. We also host classes and workshops. So that really wasn't my lifetime dream, is to have a business like this. I started out over 35 years ago seeking the corporate job. So I was determined that I was going to climb the corporate ladder and I was going to be like a top executive with a major corporation. And that was my dream. And I did pursue that dream. And that dream somewhat came true as I moved from corporation to corporation and I moved up the ladder. I was a marketing executive. I focused on developing marketing plans. I focused on building brands in the different businesses that I worked with. And I loved what I did. I had majored in art, I was artistic, and this was like the perfect job for me. However, I found that for whatever reason, I just wasn't fulfilled. I always had this, what I would call this inner feeling of not being 100%. But also, let me tell you a little story. From the time that I was little, I always felt different. Now, I wasn't really sure what that difference meant, but I just assumed that whatever my difference was that everyone else had the same difference that I had. But as I grew older, I realized that that difference was something that not everyone had, and that I seemed to have this ability. And I wasn't quite sure what to even call this ability, but I could literally look at people and know what was going on with them. And I could sort of see inside of them. And I could understand if they had a challenge or if they had some emotional something going on. And even at times, I could actually start to see things in the future about them. But again, I wasn't quite sure what this was, and it certainly wasn't encouraged by my family. So I just moved on in my career and decided that my goal was to pursue this corporate career that I felt like would be the right answer for me. So let's move forward quickly. So in my late 30s, I had moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I loved being able to live in this great city. And that was because my whole life I'd wanted to live here because I grew up about 2 to 3 hours from here. And I finally had the perfect job. And while I was working in this position, a friend of mine said, "Hey, let's go see this psychic who was doing like public readings in at a hotel, and he's going to give people all these predictions and information about what's going on in their lives." And I was a little skeptical. I was kind of like, "Oh yeah, right. That somebody's going to stand on stage and they're going to make predictions about people and they're going to come true." So we go to this event, and while we're sitting there, and there was probably, I don't know, 400 people in the audience, he points right at me and he says, "Who are you?" And I was like, "What do you mean, who am I? Why are you asking me this?" And he said, well, whoever you are more intuitive and psychic than I am. And hey, I laughed. I mean, I put my arms up and I said, oh no, I am a marketing executive. I'm not an intuitive. I'm not a psychic. And he just kind of walked away. And I'm thinking, oh, who is this person? So he continues on. He's giving predictions for other people. And then he turns and he comes back to me and he points and he says, I know you're skeptical. However, next week you're going to get a job offer, a new job offer. And I was like, again, ugh, who is this guy? He doesn't know what he's talking about. So we left the event. And the very next week, I'm sitting in my office and my manager comes in and says, hey, you're going to get an opportunity to interview for a new job in the company. And I got to tell you, I was stunned. I was like, wow, what do you mean? I mean, no, that can't be. And he was like, yeah, someone is interested in you working in a different department. Well, I got to tell you, that prediction was coming true. So it really kind of, I guess I'd have to say, kind of scared me a little bit, because how could anyone make a prediction on me? Now, here's the interesting part. In my career, in many instances, in my positions, I did forecasting, like, number forecasting, trend forecasting, trying to look to the future with businesses and helping them develop their marketing plans. And that came very naturally to me. So I never gave it a second thought. But then I started realizing, isn't this interesting? I'm actually making forecasts in business, but yet I am resisting that someone is telling me that I'm intuitive or psychic. So what did I do? I called up that person, that psychic, and I said, look, I would like to know more, because obviously you knew something I didn't. And is there a way that maybe you could even help me? Maybe you could even give me insight, or you could be a mentor or something along those lines. Well, he agreed. And over the years, I began to step into my spiritual journey. And in that spiritual journey, I realized that, yes, I was very intuitive. I realized that, yes, I was very psychic, and that I could look into the energy or the aura of others, and I could see things. And not only could I see things that, were right there present, I could even pick up things in the past, and I could pick up things in the present, and I could even look to the future. And so I realized that was something I could do, and how could I use this? So I moved forward about 6 or 7 years later in my corporate job. But while I was in my corporate job, I continued to expand my abilities and my knowledge and my skills. And I began to apply that to my coworkers and to my staff and people that I worked with. And I realized that absolutely I had an ability to pull in information that could help others. So I left the corporate world, stepped out on my own, became an entrepreneur, and started working with people intuitively and spiritually. So even though I stepped out and became an entrepreneur, I also realized that I still had a lot of work to do on myself. And I stepped into spiritual and personal development. And I spent several years when I left the corporate world really learning more about myself, because my life was not without challenges. Let me tell you, I had a lot of challenges. I mean, I've been married multiple times. I always had great jobs, and I always moved from one job to the next, which was always very positive. But then I always realized, after I was at the job a couple of years, I just didn't feel that I was being fulfilled spiritually or creatively. And so it's hard sometimes when you realize that you have more to learn in life. And I was also a resistant learner. So, if you think sometimes, oh, you're you just don't want to learn something, or you don't want to give up your opinions of how you feel about things, it is important to recognize that in order to step into yourself 100% spiritually, you really have to be willing to let go or to surrender. And surrender for me, that's not so easy because I'm a Taurus, and you know how Taurus people are. They're bullheaded, they're resistant, and they can be fiery. So I had all those characteristics as well. But here's my goal with this podcast. I believe that we all have a spiritual destiny. I believe that we are eternal light beings. And I believe that we can create anything and everything that we desire in our life if we are willing to fully step into our spiritual being. And stepping into your spiritual being is not always that easy. And I have spent the last 10 years working in the spiritual industry and working with people, listening to people share what their challenges are, listening to people talk about how their intuition is growing, listening to them talking about the gifts that are arising within them. And I couldn't ask for anything better than to be able to help and guide people. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to share a lot of my knowledge, my experiences, and also my own challenges so that maybe I can help you in any way. I don't know. It might be a word. It might be something that I do. It might be something that I say. But whatever it is, if I can help you find a way to make your life easier, healthier, happier, more peaceful, more joyful, but also give you this sense of freedom, that you don't have all these burdens on your shoulders. I mean, right now we know our world has a lot of chaos, but you can be stuck in the chaos and complain about everything, or you can step out of that chaos and find the goodness in the things that happen in the world. And that's where I am. It doesn't matter what the challenge is. It doesn't matter what the situation is. There's always something good about it that you can learn about yourself and about the situation. And so I'm here to share those times with you. I'm here to share perhaps the stories of others where they have turned their life around, where they have changed the way they think, where they have manifested the relationship of their life, their soulmate. I want to bring you situations where people have created tremendous success because they finally stepped into their spiritual essence. I want to share with you people who have created powerful lives, who are out there making a difference in other people's lives because they stepped into their full spiritual being. And let me tell you, it is a journey. And right now, you and I both know there are thousands of spiritual programs out there, thousands. And there are thousands, probably even millions of people who are taking these courses, who are seeking things. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But there's one thing that I do know. In order to truly step into what you consider your spiritual essence, your spiritual power, is that you must be willing to surrender. You must be willing to step out of fear and into faith, because faith is what will carry you in the future. So that's a little bit about my story. Now, I will say that I love the business that I have. And it gives me an opportunity because it is a retail business where thousands of people come through every month. And, they're buying products and they're telling me their stories. And I'm helping them find the things that they believe will serve them. I'm listening to their stories. I'm giving them feedback. I'm making suggestions. And that's something that I love doing every single day. And that is something that I want to be able to do for you as I offer this podcast on a weekly basis. So that's a little bit about my story. And if you think about it, I call this Spirit on Demand because for me, when I need an answer, I just call a spirit. Spirit's right there, ready. When I demand an answer, Spirit gives me an answer. I tell everyone that I know, all my clients, all my customers, is that spirituality is not a switch. You just don't flip it on and flip it off. It is with you 24/7. And your guides, your angels, and your spirits, and whomever guides you, it's there 24/7. They are on demand. They are ready to support you. And that is how I've been able to move forward and create what most people would call a successful life. But to me, success is being happy. Success is being powerful. Success is being peaceful. Success is being able to live a life of joy and love waking up every morning looking forward to what's going to happen in the day and that I'm ready for the challenge. Because if it's a challenge, I'm ready for it. If it's going to be an easygoing, effortless day, I'm ready for that too. So that's what we'll be talking about in the future. And I hope that this podcast is a beacon of light that will help you walk toward who you truly are and learn to be that eternal light being, which is what we all came here to be.